In the midst of a tumultuous political landscape, voices from within the Democratic Party are sounding alarms about its direction and viability. Jared Golden, a congressman from Maine's 2nd District, has emerged as a striking critic of his party's current predicament, emphasizing the need for a candid reassessment of how Democrats engage with voters, particularly in swing districts that have shifted loyalties in recent elections. Golden, who represents a constituency that swung from Barack Obama to Donald Trump, has first-hand insights into the complexities of voter sentiment and the party's waning influence. In a recent interview with Time, Golden articulated his concerns regarding the Democratic Party's disconnect with the working class, a demographic crucial for electoral success. He stated, "I think the party is as weak as I've ever seen it," highlighting a growing consensus that the challenge of reconnecting with working-class voters transcends simplistic narratives regarding race and class. He underscored the importance of acknowledging the struggles faced by these communities, particularly those adversely affected by globalization and free trade policies. Golden suggested that Democrats need to recognize popular sentiments around issues such as tariffs, positions that have gained traction among working-class voters despite being anathema to traditional Democratic platforms. Golden's perspective reflects a broader frustration within the party about how to maintain relevance and trust. There are still a lot of swing voters, he argued, countering the notion that these voters are a vanishing breed. His approach focuses on rebuilding trust through genuine engagement rather than merely catering to party bases. He believes that Democrats must not only listen but also adapt their messaging to resonate with constituents who feel overlooked. "We should ask ourselves hard questions about what we are putting forward that is not popular and be willing to back off of those things," he urged, advocating for a strategic pivot towards the issues that truly matter to voters. As Golden navigates these challenges, he envisions a Democratic Party that reignites its commitment to foundational programs like Social Security and Medicare, initiatives that historically aligned the party with the working class. "Let's double down on our past commitments to the American people," he implored, suggesting that a focus on long-standing social safety nets is vital for regaining credibility with voters. His call for a reformed approach centers on a blend of progressive ideals with an understanding of the economic realities faced by many Americans. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith, a prominent sports commentator, has expressed his disillusionment with the Democratic Party, framing its current state as pathetic. In a recent appearance on Hannity, he critiqued the party's lack of viable candidates and the disconnection from the electorate. Smith's candid remarks labeling the political landscape as a cesspool underscore a growing sentiment of frustration among voters who feel let down by party leadership. His critique extends to established figures within the party, suggesting that the electorate is yearning for fresh ideas and robust leadership rather than recycled candidates who may not resonate with contemporary issues. As the political climate shifts, the question of Puerto Rico's status looms large, highlighting the complexities of representation and governance in U.S. territories. A recent discussion surrounding the Puerto Rico Status Act reveals the ongoing struggle for self-determination and the challenges of integrating Puerto Rico into the broader political fabric of the United States. Efforts to hold a plebiscite for Puerto Ricans to decide their political future have met with significant obstacles, reflecting the deep-rooted complexities of colonial legacies and the fight for equitable representation. In light of these discussions, it is clear that both the Democratic Party and potential candidates must grapple with a critical juncture in American politics. With the 2028 presidential election on the horizon, the need for introspection and adaptability is paramount. As Golden and Smith illustrate, the path forward may require a re-evaluation of priorities, a renewed commitment to the working class, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. The future of the Democratic Party, and potentially the political landscape at large, including a last-minute resurgence after initial indications suggested that the vote would be canceled. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who successfully quelled dissent among right-wing members concerned that the proposed cuts were insufficient, emphasized the importance of the vote, stating House Republicans moved Congress closer to delivering on President Trump's full America First agenda, not just parts of it. This sentiment reflects a broader strategy among GOP leaders to consolidate support for Trump's policies, particularly as the administration seeks to reshape federal programs and agencies. However, the budget resolution's approval has not been without its critics. Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky was the lone Republican to vote against the measure, voicing concerns that the plan would exacerbate the deficit by cutting taxes without corresponding spending reductions. "We are cutting taxes and we're not going to cut spending to match it. So the deficit is going to go up," Massie stated, highlighting a fundamental tension within the party regarding fiscal conservatism. As the budget debates unfold, the Trump administration's efforts to streamline the federal workforce are also gaining momentum, with substantial cuts already underway. Reports indicate that more than 700 National Park Service employees have opted to resign under a new resignation plan, while agencies like the Department of Housing and Urban Development have begun executing significant workforce reductions. This has led to widespread confusion among federal employees, particularly as directives from top officials such as Elon Musk, who was involved in the administration's efficiency initiatives, create uncertainty around job security. In tandem with these budgetary strategies, the administration has taken steps to exert tighter control over the media landscape. Asserting authority over the selection of journalists allowed in the presidential pool. This move has drawn criticism from the White House Correspondents Association, which argues that it undermines the independence of the press, a cornerstone of democratic governance. In another significant development, Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, announced the termination of over 100 intelligence officers for inappropriate conduct on a government chat platform. This action underscores a broader push within the administration to restore professionalism and accountability across federal agencies, as Gabbard framed her efforts within the context of a larger mission to depoliticize the intelligence community. The ramifications of these budgetary and administrative decisions extend beyond the immediate fiscal landscape, potentially reshaping the political landscape as well. Governor Kathy Hochul of New York has seized the opportunity presented by the federal workforce cuts to recruit displaced workers into state positions, positioning New York as a welcoming alternative for those facing job insecurity under the Trump administration. Looking ahead, the implications of the budget resolution and the accompanying workforce reductions will likely be felt across various sectors, from social services to national security. As the administration continues to navigate these turbulent waters, it remains to be seen whether this aggressive fiscal strategy will achieve its intended outcomes or provoke further dissent within and outside the Republican Party. The ongoing developments will be critical in shaping the future of American governance as the administration grapples with the complexities of reforming federal operations while addressing voter concerns over fiscal responsibility and public service integrity. In a significant development in U.S. politics, the Senate Republicans are gearing up to make substantial modifications to the House-passed blueprint for former President Donald Trump's agenda. This move comes as the party looks to navigate the complexities of governance amid a divided Congress where negotiating priorities has become increasingly crucial. As the Biden administration settles into its second term, the interplay between the Senate and the House has become a focal point of legislative strategy. The Senate GOP, led by figures such as Senator Shelley Moore Capito, is keenly aware of the challenges they face in aligning their objectives with those of the House. During a recent breakfast meeting with the Ripon Society, Senator Capito emphasized the urgent need to address the upcoming budget challenges, anticipating a contentious vote-a-rama as lawmakers deliberate the federal budget. "We're staring down the barrel of another vote-a-rama on that particular budget bill," she noted, highlighting the critical discussions ahead. Capito's remarks underscore the Republican leadership's commitment to fulfilling campaign promises, particularly regarding tax reform. The party is under pressure to deliver on initiatives that resonate with their electoral base, including potential tax relief measures aimed at small businesses and the hospitality sector. "The president wants permanent tax reform," she stated, hinting at ongoing negotiations with the administration to incorporate these key elements into the budget discussions. Meanwhile, Senator Jon Ossoff has emerged as a prominent voice opposing the controversial proposal to use Guantanamo Bay for the mass detention of migrants. Leading a coalition of senators, Ossoff has expressed grave concerns about the implications of such a move on human rights and military readiness. "Our men and women in uniform are warfighters, not jailers of migrants," he asserted, underscoring the ethical dilemmas posed by diverting military resources to handle immigration issues. This opposition highlights the ongoing debate about the U.S. approach to immigration and the treatment of migrants, an issue that remains contentious across party lines. In the broader context of legislative priorities, the Senate is also focused on infrastructure, with Capito leading efforts on reauthorizing the highway bill. This initiative is seen as pivotal to addressing America's aging infrastructure, which has long been a bipartisan concern. "We can't build and we can't get projects to fruition without some kind of permitting reform," she remarked, signaling a commitment to streamlining processes that have historically stalled progress. As these discussions unfold, the impact of bipartisan cooperation, or the lack thereof, will be crucial in shaping the legislative landscape for the foreseeable future. The interplay between the Senate and House, along with the administration's willingness to negotiate, will determine the trajectory of key policies on taxation, immigration, and infrastructure. Looking ahead, observers will be keenly watching how Senate Republicans reconcile their agenda with the House's priorities, particularly in a political climate where divisions are pronounced. The outcome of these negotiations will not only affect the immediate legislative agenda but could also set the stage for the 2026 midterms and beyond, as both parties seek to solidify their positions on critical national issues. In a significant political maneuver, the Oregon House of Representatives has advanced a crucial bill aimed at securing vital funding for the state's Medicaid program, with bipartisan support helping to propel it through the legislative process. On February 27, 2025, the House voted 40-15 to pass House Bill 2010, which is designed to raise billions in federal funds for Oregon's Medicaid program and ensure continued support for hospitals across the state. Notably, 6 Republicans joined their Democratic colleagues in supporting the bill, a move that signals a rare moment of cooperation in an often polarized political landscape. The passage of HB 2010 is pivotal as it extends 2 key taxes that provide approximately 25% of the funding for the Oregon Health Plan, the state's Medicaid program responsible for covering healthcare for low-income individuals. These taxes include a 2% assessment on health insurance plans and a 6% assessment on hospitals' net revenues. This funding mechanism is essential as the state utilizes federal matching funds, typically around $3 for every state dollar invested, to bolster its Medicaid budget. Without the necessary legislative action, these taxes would expire within 2 years, potentially creating a $1.13 billion funding gap for the Medicaid program in the 2025 to 2027 biennium. Democratic lawmakers emphasized the importance of maintaining the tax to uphold Oregon's commitment to healthcare access. Representative Rob Nass, a Democrat from Portland, stated, "It is a lifeline for families who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford essential medical care." He highlighted that the program now covers about 1/3 of Oregonians and over half of the state's children, underscoring its significance in providing essential services like checkups, vaccinations, and critical treatments. Opposition from the Republican side stemmed not from the bill's content but rather from procedural concerns. Some Republicans argued that the bill should have required a supermajority for passage due to its tax implications. Despite these objections, the bill ultimately garnered enough support to surpass the threshold, with notable Republican figures such as Ed Deal, Cyrus Javati, and Kim Wallen crossing party lines to vote in favor. The extension of these taxes is supported by various stakeholders, including the Hospital Association of Oregon and major health insurance providers like Regence Blue Cross and Moda Health. In written testimony, Marion Cooper from Cambia Health Solutions expressed cautious support, emphasizing the need for a balance between improving Medicaid funding and maintaining affordability for Oregonians. As the state grapples with a growing Medicaid population and declining revenues from other sources such as tobacco taxes, the legislative approval of this funding mechanism comes at a critical juncture. A recent federal budget proposal passed by House Republicans, which aims to cut federal spending on healthcare programs over the next decade, further complicates the landscape for Medicaid funding, raising concerns about potential repercussions for state-level programs. As this bill moves to the Senate, the implications of its passage could resonate beyond Oregon, particularly as other states face similar funding challenges in their Medicaid programs. The outcomes of these discussions will be closely watched, as they may set precedents for healthcare funding strategies nationwide amidst a backdrop of ongoing federal budgetary constraints. In a significant legal development, the U.S. Supreme Court has intervened in a contentious dispute involving the Trump administration and foreign aid contractors. On February 28, 2025, Chief Justice John Roberts granted an emergency request from the administration to pause a lower court's order that mandated the payment of foreign assistance funds to contractors and grant recipients. This marks a noteworthy moment in the ongoing legal battles as the Supreme Court begins to shape the intricate balance of power within the federal government. The urgency of the situation was underscored by the impending midnight deadline set by a federal judge, which would have required the administration to comply with the order. The Trump administration argued that adhering to the tight deadline was not logistically or technically feasible. In a statement to the court, they emphasized their commitment to paying legitimate claims, but asserted that the process needed to ensure proper oversight and documentation could not be rushed. The pause granted by Roberts followed a rejection from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, where a panel of judges appointed by Democratic presidents ruled that the lower court's decision was not ripe for review. While Roberts did not provide a detailed rationale for his decision, he did instruct grant recipients to explain by the following day why the judge's order should remain in effect. This legal tussle can be traced back to President Donald Trump's first day in office, when he halted foreign aid, throwing humanitarian assistance efforts into disarray. The administration's freeze on payments sparked outrage among organizations that rely on funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development (USAID) and the State Department. Critics have accused the Trump administration of unlawfully obstructing the flow of funds, jeopardizing crucial humanitarian initiatives across the globe. U.S. District Judge Amir Ali, appointed by President Joe Biden, temporarily blocked the administration's plan to implement a blanket freeze on foreign aid as he considered the lawsuit brought by various contractors and aid organizations. He directed the government to disburse payments to contractors who had completed their work prior to the freeze. Following complaints from these contractors about delayed payments, Judge Ali issued a directive for compliance by the midnight deadline. Allison Zeev, a lawyer representing two plaintiffs, AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition and Journalism Development Network, expressed her dismay at the government's continued resistance to the court's orders. The lengths that the government is willing to go to flout a court order, all for the goal of ending life-saving humanitarian assistance, is staggering, she stated. The Justice Department, on the other hand, maintained that the administration was acting in good faith, but argued that the timeline set by the judge was overly constraining. Acting Solicitor General Sarah Harris highlighted that around $4 million in payments were initiated but would take 2 days to process, with an additional $11 million approved for release within 2 weeks. However, the broader picture is bleak, as the State Department has announced significant cuts to USAID's foreign aid contracts, reducing overall U.S. assistance by over $58 billion. This case is emblematic of larger tensions within the U.S. legal and political landscape, as the Supreme Court increasingly finds itself at the center of significant policy debates. As the court's involvement unfolds, observers are left to ponder the implications of such rulings, not only for foreign aid but also for the broader dynamics of executive power and judicial oversight. The future of U.S. foreign aid and its humanitarian consequences hangs in the balance as the court prepares to address these pressing issues in the coming weeks.